First up is going to be Kaz, lead officer for Unite, speaking on behalf of Unite. And then follow him, we're going to have a shop steward from the Talbot Steelworks.
Thank you. Brothers, sisters, comrades, first of all, solidarity formally from Unite and from our General Secretary Sharon Graham to this conference. We've all become used, and perhaps a bit sick and tired, of listening to the Tory and Labour leaders making the same repetitive speech over and over again, the same backstory. But there's one area that we do repeat time and time again in Unite, with some seasonal adjustments to figures, because the position now, since the election of our current General Secretary, since August 2021, is that we have now won over 430 million in increased wages since August 2021. That's over 200,000 workers involved in over 1,250 disputes, winning over 80% of those. That is a massive transfer of cash from the employers to the workers, and that's exactly what we are about. And I'm absolutely bursting with pride, not just at those figures, but with what they represent, the specifics, the detail. Our members at Edinburgh Airport running or part of the imaginatively named campaign Runway to Success, winning a 12% pay increase as part of that campaign. Our members at Aston Martin winning 8% this year, bringing the total since 2022 to 30%. Our members at Baxter Story Canteens, who took strike action. They are outsourced. It's the canteen at the Drax Energy Network. They took strike action and they won 19.2%. These are huge victories. Our members at Sabah Parking in Slough, 26%. And it's not just basic pay. Our members at Greenwich Leisure Limited in Bromley and Greenwich took strike action and won a 20% increase in sick pay through strike action, a 20% increase in sick pay. These are huge victories. And of course, we have our members at Barts, who are currently being balloted and consulted on an offer from the employer that's recommended by the reps, which signifies one thing only, a massive, huge victory. If the members obviously accept that, then we will make sure that we shout about that up to the rooftops. But it's also not just about pay. I mentioned sick pay earlier on. Our members in the NHS have been involved in campaigns around safe staffing in the NHS, because we can't trust capitalist politicians to make the NHS safe. So again, a huge sense of pride that biomedical scientists in East Lancs balloted for strike action because they made the point. It's not just nurses and doctors, as important as that is, it's everybody in the health sector, it's everybody in the NHS, where we have to have safe staffing levels. And they have won. We're able to announce a 60% increase in full-time equivalent posts, as well as a £3,000 increase in pay. And on the issue of health, Wes Streeting talks about clearing the backlog of appointments, presumably with a skip load of overtime. The reality is we all know that people in the NHS are working well beyond their paid hours at the moment, so quite how that works I do not know. But there was another scandal, by the way, that if you do manage to work overtime in the NHS, a lot of the time it's not on overtime rates. They put you on something called the bank rate and you get paid a lot less than overtime. So we will need to make sure that Streeting does not slip in that kind of con. I can't come up here without talking about Tata. I'm not going to steal all of Jason's thunder. But we are making the point, and we've said it officially now, that this is what happens when a foundation industry is run by a private, multinational company that cares only about profits. You know, I've been talking to the press the last couple of days, and one of the questions that's come up a few times from the BBC is, well, it's a strike notice, all-out strike action. It's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? I'm not a gambling man. I'm not a betting man. unlike a lot of Tories at the moment. However, when you face job losses of 2,800, taking strike action is not a gamble, it's the only thing to do. It's the only response. If you're not going to strike then when do you strike? And our members are doing this despite blackmail threats, despite threats to cut redundancy pay. And by the way, with one incident, I kid you not, managers called people to a briefing and then said they're not leaving the briefings until they sign forms to say whether or not they are striking. They then physically blocked the exits. So, as well as job cuts, we can add unlawful detention to the crimes from Tata. Look, the only other thing I really want to push as far as Tata is concerned is that at our lobby on Monday this week, we also had environmental activists coming along to that lobby, and that emphasises our point. We want a fair transition. We want a green transition, but it cannot be at the cost of working people. That is completely and utterly unacceptable. On the Labour manifesto, our trade union was the only one that refused out of the affiliated trade unions to give an agreement. I can give you just two reasons why here. Now, look, our press release said it's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese. I had suggested weak as piss, but apparently that wasn't appropriate. But look, just two areas in that manifesto. The so-called ban on fire and rehire. It's not a ban. It's not a ban. It is so weak, and it's got a get-out clause in it. And if they were truly committed to it, then look at the example at Greenwich, where we've got Unite members working in housing repairs, taking strike action against a proposal from a Labour council to cut pay by 17%. Now, the only legal way they can do that at the moment is through fire and rehire. So, unsurprisingly, we've said to that Labour council, it's in your manifesto, you're not going to do it. You give us an agreement that says you're not going to fire and rehire, and the dispute's done. It's finished. Done. We haven't had that yet from the Labour Council, despite us being very public about it, and that's why we are nervous about that. It is absolutely weak. On 0 hours, we've now got the words exploitative put in front of that, a ban on exploitative 0 hours contracts. Who decides what exploitative is? And coming back to Labour councils, we've got Labour councils giving contracts to private companies to run services by using people on 0 hour contracts. So what does that tell you about the commitment? And the final thing on the manifesto is that they say that they're going to consult with business. I'll save them the time. I think we know exactly what response we are going to get from business. What we need is a government that stops banging on about growth. That before we have investment in the NHS or local government, we need growth. Well, look, on the issue of local government, first of all, we're consulting our members at the moment, and we are recommending that they reject a pay offer put forward by the national employers. And also on local government, we are currently preparing a campaign for fair funding right across local government, not just to save the services that we've got, but to rebuild what we have lost in local government. And we will turn our policy demanding no cuts, needs-based budgets into an industrial strategy and industrial campaign. But back to the point of growth. We are a £3 trillion economy, sixth largest economy. Corporate profit margins have risen by 30%. How much more growth do you want? The issue isn't about growth and having more of it. It's about the share of the growth that we've got at the moment. And as we've said again and again, the wrong people have got it, they've got too much of it, and it's about time that we took our share of those profits and that wealth. Look, just to come to some kind of conclusion, our message is that it is fighters like those at Sanctuary Housing, at Basildon Tractors, who are the salt of the earth. We demand a fair transition for workers in energy. There can be no ban without a plan. Workers cannot be made to pay for an environmental crisis that is not of their making. We will use brain and brawn to fight for our members and reshape the industrial landscape. We are determined to do everything necessary to win on behalf of our members. Absolutely everything that is necessary. Solidarity to every single worker taking strike action, and victory to every striking worker. Thank you, brothers and sisters.